Monday. This is week 8. Alright, it's day 14. Did a little review, talked about the exams, lab, packet tracer. I asked, are there any questions? Packet tracer chapter 6, it's just like an exam. Lab work, we talked about some of the things we did in the lab the other day. Then this was the password. They took an assessment for the unit, see how we were doing. Alright, so then we reviewed the lab. We talked about which routers there were, which switches they had, and reviewed some items. Okay, we talked about, yeah, each student had a switch, and then they had a router on the lab, and we talked about the ARP at this point. If you wanted to connect to a switch, you could use a rollover cable and connect to a serial port. We talked about that. Then we showed this switch, this multi-layer switch that had everybody connected, and we looked at the ARP table there, and we were able to see the matchup between the IP address and the MAC address. Alright, so we were able to make that comparison. Then we even talked about routing out to this router, doing NAT, converting it to the 172 network, and so forth, going out. Alright, we talked about IP version 4, IP version 6, 32 bits, 8 bits. Talked about the addressing here a little bit. An octet, 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 8 bits gives us 32 bits. IP6, 128 bits. And so we're going to take more, closer look at IP6 as we move on through the term, and we have devices that will allow using IP6. Again, we talked about, let's say you're connecting a browser. We reviewed application, presentation. We talked about encryption, setting up a session, transport layer, port numbers, break it into segments. Are we going to transport using TCP or UDP? Network layer, we now make a packet, add source destination IP. We're thinking about best path. Data link, we now have a frame, source destination MAC address, and then the physical layer. We took this test, and coming up we have the SBA, and basically we talked about that. On Friday you're going to have to get a workstation on the switch. The switch is going to connect out. I'll have the devices from here on, so you don't have to configure the router. So you really, first thing, would get the switch on so it can get to the internet, and then you would figure the switch to get the workstation on, and that should get out to the internet. And then, the configuration's there, and then you'll configure the switch so that you should be able to, from your workstation, telnet to the switch in order to configure it. Yeah, so that would be the SPA, and then also similar to this, we'll have the midterm exam, that also on Friday. So this would be about half the class, and this would be about half the class. And that's it.